Perfect. Okay, so this interview is being conducted for the LGBTQ plus History Project. My name is McKenna Cruz and I use she, her pronouns. We are recording at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, April 9th of 2020 over the phone, and I am recording from my home in Bradford, Ohio. Thank you for being willing to record this important history and for taking the time out of your day to do so. So first, I'd like you to introduce yourself. If you would include your pronouns, your age, your name, and anything else that you would like us to know about you.
Well, I'm Dennis Wall. I'm 64 years old. I was born in North Carolina, but moved to Piqua when I was about a year old, and was raised in Piqua, Ohio. And I used to work at the Water Main, the gay bar in Piqua, Ohio.
Awesome, thank you. And as you know, we're interested in the history of the LGBTQ plus community. If you would be willing to share how you personally identify, I would really appreciate that.
Well, I probably first went to that bar in late 1976. I'm not sure when it opened. I think it opened in the mid-1970s. Fred and Lowell ran the bar and owned it. And I started going there and made a lot of friends. We had a very nice crowd during the week, and on the weekends it was all people.
Nice. Was the coming out experience, if that was something you experienced, important to you? And if so, could you tell me a little bit about it?
Well, the coming out was a little bit difficult, of course, in Piqua. And I had a partner, and one of our friends got a hold of a letter that he had written to me, and she made copies of it and gave it to our other friends. So I was more or less outed before I could come out. But I don't think it was a big surprise to my very close friends whatsoever. But that's kind of the story of how I came out, and then decided to go to the local gay bar.
Awesome, thank you. Sorry to hear about that, but I'm glad that you have been able to be yourself, and that you did have hopefully a few people that supported you. Oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
No,
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let's see. So about the water main, what role did the water main have in your life, and your experience in the LGBTQ plus community?
Oh my gosh. Being just recently coming out and meeting new friends, a group of friends that I could rely on, plenty of support, some education from the older people that came into the club, and it was very helpful during that time because that was my family at that time.
That's awesome. How did you first hear about the water main and decide that it was somewhere that you wanted to spend time?
Well, I met the owners. A friend of mine that I worked with rented an apartment from the owners, and she lived underneath them. Fred actually ran off-Broadway beauty salon, and they lived upstairs. And just parking in the back parking lot and going to visit her, we kind of felt that vibe. And I, met them and went from there, and of course ended up going down to the water main.
Perfect. How was the bar perceived in the Piqua community?
It was mixed, very mixed. There were times, in the beginning, I would call ahead and have them unlock the back door. I didn't want to go through the front. And so I would park in the back, and they would unlock the door, and I'd go from my car, kind of a little jog or a quick run, and went into the back door. Now, when I was with oh, a group of friends, if there were 4 or 5 of us, we would go through the front door. There was a door, and then you came in, and there was there was a person behind the glass that would check IDs and buzz you into the second door. And she also would inform people that if they weren't familiar that it was a gay bar, she would make sure they knew that before they entered.
Perfect. Was the community at the bar open or strictly for a certain group in the LGBTQ plus community?
Well, I'd say 98% of the patrons were gay. There were times that if you came through that front door, you had a chance of having a beer bottle thrown at you from a car driving by, and of course being called all sorts of names. Because with the water main being on the corner of Water and Main Street, it was on the main drag. And so you'd come in that front door, you were hoping for a green light, so there wouldn't be any cars stopped. But, of course, back then, that was, how people reacted.
Thank you. Did you know the owner?
Yes, I knew both of the owners.
You said Fred Whirling was one of them. Who was the other owner?
Lowell Armstrong.
Perfect. Thank you. And then I have seen in my research that there were drag shows and bands that played there. What other events did the bar put on?
Well, the drag shows they were just fantastic. They had some of the best drag shows in the Midwest. It drew people in from all over Indiana. They would come in from Indianapolis, Columbus, Cincinnati. We even had people come in from Chicago occasionally. And the drag shows were usually Saturday night, and the bar was just packed. The other items that we would do as a community, we would go down to the Hollow, the old park where there used to be a big swimming pool, because it was a very private park, and we would have our gay picnics. And I wouldn't call it gay pride back then, but the way I look at it, how gay pride started, it was kind of like our own little gay pride. And we would have 20, 30 people come down for a picnic.
That is so cool. What would you say was the most popular events that were put on, or bands that came?
I don't recall that many bands. Just there were some very popular drag queens that would really draw the crowds in, and they would, of course, publicize that well in advance, and that's what really made that bar profitable, I believe.
Do you remember any of the drag queens' names, or like their stage names?
Oh gosh, I really don't. I remember one that was from Anderson, Indiana, a big old farm boy, and when he would go to drag, and he would come in with those broad shoulders, and he was a tall boy too, and it was just a combination of all sorts of different people that would come there and drag.
Awesome, thank you. What is your favorite memory from the water main?
My friends, the new friends I met, and just building that family, of just having that close-knit family that you could rely on, and of course a lot of laughter, just a ton of laughter.
Very nice. So we talked a little bit about the experience that it had and the impact it had on you. Did the water main have a significant role in your life besides just friends?
Well, I would say yes. During that time frame, I started going there, like I said, late 1976. I moved out of Piqua in 1979. And when I came back to visit, of course, I would always go there, and those friends would come back in. I believe, I'm not sure when it closed. I know it had something to do with Fred and Lowell, with, I guess, not quite agreeing on how to keep it open or keep it running. And I believe it was Fred who had it torn down. Once he got over the bar business and just said, I'm going to tear it down, and he did.
So that kind of answers my next question a little bit, but just to clarify, what years did you patron the water main?
Late 1976 through August of 79, and then when I would come back to visit my family and friends, I would go there for probably a couple more years, so maybe 81, 82.
Perfect. Were you aware of any gay bars around Piqua?
That's the only one I was aware of in Piqua. There were, I think, 3 in Dayton. And of course, a lot more in Chicago and Cincinnati, but no, I mean, I can't remember any in Indiana with the exception of Indianapolis.
Okay.
So we were in a location that kind of, within an hour and a half radius. Oh, there were 2 bars in Springfield.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a big clientele from Springfield.
Very nice. And then earlier you said that you knew a little bit about people coming from Muncie and Anderson. And I mentioned the Mark III Tap Room, but have you ever heard of the Mark III Tap Room in Muncie, Indiana? It's the longest standing gay bar in Indiana. And did you ever go there or know anybody that went there?
I know I didn't go there.
Okay.
And I don't recall that bar back then.
That is totally okay. Thank you. So we're going to move a little bit into just your own personal life story. And you answered a little bit of this already, but I'm going to ask the questions again just so that it is formatted in the right way. But where are you from?
I consider myself from Piqua because I was, less than a year when I moved there from North Carolina. But I was born in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Awesome. Where else besides Piqua and Raleigh have you lived in your life?
I moved to Atlanta in 1979. We had that big blizzard in 78. I said, that's it, I'm moving. And moved to Atlanta in 1979 and lived in Atlanta for 40 years and just recently moved to Tarpon Springs, Florida. I did my first gay pride march in 1980, and at that time there were only a couple hundred people in the parade. And today in Atlanta, the gay pride march draws over 300,000 people in attendance throughout the parade and to the park and the festivities. And it's the longest running parade in the city of Atlanta today.
That is really cool. Do you ever go back and visit Piqua now?
I do. I go back at least once a year. It's usually all with family over Christmas, over the holidays. And I'll, go and visit my old friends. We'll get together for lunch or dinner. Some of my very close friends that accepted me back then, and some that didn't quite accept me at first, but then as we grew older, they understood more.
That's very nice. Would you describe, or how would you describe the LGBTQ plus community in Piqua?
Back then, it was very closeted. There were some that were flamboyant. We had one person, Bobby, he was just really flamboyant, but for the most part, they were somewhat quiet, and they just, they liked to have the community within the bar, but outside the bar, they, go to their jobs and interact with all the straight people and not be open with their lives back then as much.
Cool. even with moving away, do you consider yourself a part of the LGBTQ plus community in Piqua? And if so, why or why not?
I would say not. It was too. It wasn't quite as open back then to really be out and about and be as proud as it is today. I did go to one march when I lived in Piqua, and that march was up in Lima, Ohio, and it was to protest against Anita Bryant.
Very interesting. Cool. Do you know of any resources or spaces besides the bar that existed for LGBTQ plus people in Piqua?
None.
Interesting. What do you wish... Oh, sorry, continue.
I mean, there were some books that you could read that had homosexuality involved in that story, but the plush public library had those behind lock and key.
Interesting. What do you wish Piqua had that it doesn't?
Well, it would be nice to have a gay bar in Piqua again, but I think the community could support it even more today. I think there'd be a lot more straights that would come into the bar than that would have come in years ago. It was great entertainment and just, like I said, great friendship, a lot of camaraderie.
Perfect. Do you ever go to other cities or places to seek out LGBTQ plus communities or experiences?
No, not anymore. I worked in a gay bar in Atlanta when I first moved there for about 5 years. Backstreet Atlanta, which was like the Studio 54 of the South. And over the years, I just don't go out to bars anymore and stuff like that. I did for a number of years in Atlanta, but then it just, with everything being online, and I just, stopped going out. And some of my friends that I used to go out with, of course, passed away or moved away.
Mm.
And so, no, not really anymore. And then I moved to Florida. I still haven't been out to one bar here.
Okay. And how do you think the LGBTQ plus community in Piqua compares to the other communities or places that you've lived in?
Wow, you can't really compare Piqua to Atlanta. Atlanta, when I first moved there, I felt so much more open, and we could go to the parks. We could hug. It wasn't quite ready for you to be walking down the street holding hands yet, but Atlanta was a lot more open than Piqua ever was and probably ever will be. But, back when I lived in Piqua and in the 70s, it was just, you didn't, show yourself out in public like that much.
That makes sense. So I know Edison State Community College is in Piqua now. Was that there when you lived in Piqua?
I believe it just recently opened. I think it was maybe opened in 74 or 75. I don't quite recall.
Okay. So we're going to move on to some educational and professional history. Can you tell me more about your educational background?
Well, I graduated from Piqua Central. I was the student council president. I was in the marching band and concert band. Very active in the theater. And after graduation, I actually was in Piqua Players, which was a theatrical group for a couple of years. From there, I moved to Atlanta, and I went to the Atlanta College of Art and graduated from that back in the 1980s. And that's about it for my education. I mean, after I left the Backstreet, I went into the airline business, and jobs with different airlines that, of course, are all bankrupt now, so I went into the travel agency business.
Very nice. You said you went to the Atlanta College for the Arts. What degree did you get?
It was just a 2-year bachelor.
Okay, very nice. And then you said, have you had any other jobs besides a bartender or the flight industry or oh my goodness, what was the other thing you just said?
Travel industry.
Yes.
I've been in the travel industry now for about 36, 37 years.
Very
and
nice.
Still working with the travel industry.
Very nice. Have you ever experienced any job discrimination?
No, I can't say I have.
That's good. And then can you tell me more about your family of origins, like the family that you have that you really love or identify with?
Well, my family is basically all from North Carolina on my father's side. My mother's side is from Annapolis and Williamsburg, Virginia. I did have a gay uncle growing up, and he was a bishop up in Massachusetts. And I could, we didn't discuss it back then as openly as I would today, but we knew each other, we knew about each other, and had a very good bonding and a good connection.
That's good. And that leads into my next question. Are there any particular relationships that have shaped your life in an important way?
I'd say my partner, I had a couple partners in Piqua and moved down with one. He was from Greenville, and we were together about 16 years. To this day, it was just a matter of, we liked each other, we just kind of fell out of love with each other. And then I had another partner after that for about 5 years till he passed away. But I've been very fortunate with some good relationships.
That's very nice. Has your family changed at all since you were young? Can you tell me about them, what they're like now?
Oh, my immediate family,
Yeah.
They all know I'm gay, and they have known for quite some time. And there's some of my sisters and a brother that I could be a little more open with and frankly a little more frank with, more so than others. But I have 5 brothers and sisters, and we have a very close-knit family, probably closer today than we've ever been.
Very nice. So wrapping up the interview a little bit, are there any other groups in Piqua or people in Piqua that you think I should look into?
I can't say any other groups. I've been away for so long from my gay family there. I don't know where most of them ended up. I had some friends there that they moved to Fort Lauderdale, but we drifted apart over the years. And I talked to Fred probably about 2 years ago was the last time I talked to him. But I can't think of any other groups there you could really reach out to at this time.
Okay.
With the bar being gone and torn down, and like you said, there's really been no history recorded on it. I mean, it was a huge bar, with a gigantic bar inside, and it was I believe it was a 3-story building, of course, right on the corner there. Very old looking, but it was really beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other specific people who you're still friends with or keep in contact with who went there who would be good to reach out to?
Not that I can, no, not at this time that I
Okay.
can recall.
Thank you. And then is there anything else that you would like to add to the interview that we haven't covered?
I think you covered it pretty well. I'd say I was fortunate to grow up in the community of Piqua, which may not have been open, but they weren't as mean as some communities could have been.
Mm-hmm.
I knew back then it was just a great community to grow up and be part of.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to turn off the recording device really quick, and then I'll wrap up with you.